Bassam Sabah. I'm an artist based between Dublin and Belfast. I work across film, video, sculpture and painting.
My name's Mehigan. I'm an artist also in Belfast, but from West Cork as well. I primarily think of myself as a painter, but my practice kind of encompasses whatever it feels like at the time.
I'm originally from Iraq and I moved to Ireland when I was 9, and my work is really interested in the representation of violence and war in kids' cartoons and video games, and I try to use that in the films and sculptures that I make.
I'm from West Cork, but I grew up in Singapore and lived there for 25 years, so living in a city that kind of operates under the structure of a benevolent dictatorship caused me to learn a lot about like fascism and the role of power dynamics and how the media manipulates or creates new realities. So I think that that becomes really evident in my practice.
I think in our work we've always been interested in climate and the landscape. Through our collaborative work in the last film we made, which was called Paradise Out of a Common Field, we used the motif of a zombie to think through this idea of the Irish history of gardening and graveyards. And I think it's something we've always both been interested in as artists, because you are using materials, so you kind of have to be thinking about what you're making, how you're making it, and if you're actually adding to the amount of garbage that's in the world. So I try to make work that's mindful. So for me that includes not necessarily experimenting a lot with materials, but experimenting a lot on my laptop. And when it comes to making work, I'm primarily just producing work rather than producing experiments and then producing a work physically. But I think in terms of climate change as a theme, I think that's always been included in our work. And especially for me, because I've grown up with climate change always being in the news, there isn't a point in history for me that it became part of the world, that it's always been included in how I read landscape or read images or even read artworks.
So my studio, I'm kind of based between my house, a spare room in my house where I get to play a bit more, and I have a space in cathedral buildings in the city centre. I try to use the space in the city centre somewhere where I get more sort of PhD or admin things done, and it's a good meeting space for sort of the various collaborations that I have. And then my home is more of a private space where I feel more free to kind of do whatever I want. But ultimately you could put me anywhere with a phone and a laptop.
I would be the same in that so much of my work, or the ideas part of the work, happens through like my notes app, my laptop, or through emails. And my studio is primarily a place of production. I kind of shift my studio around to suit whatever I'm making at that moment. I think for us, when we collaborate, we kind of have an initial meeting about what we're thinking about at the moment. Because we both have our individual practices, when it does come time to collaborate, we come with all of this like information or all of these ideas, and then we kind of talk through them, but we also have very clear boundaries about what we're each doing in the project. And I think that is something that has really fed my individual practice, and that I give myself enough space to not necessarily think about a singular idea, but a kind of loose map of connections between cartoons, video games, things that I've seen in the real world, conversations, TV shows, film, music. It really is a process of kind of filtering the things that I encounter in the world and trying to kind of translate that into an artwork.
Identifying your strengths in a collaboration especially needs to be pretty firmly established in the beginning, and I think that way when we do come together.
And then figuring it out as we're making it. I think that allows us join our strengths.
Yeah, and capture the essence, because when you have two practices coming together, there can be a lot. And then we edit each other and ourselves quite strictly.
So I work a lot through film, video, and then sculpture and painting and installation. And I think that my work works really well with all of these elements acting as a constellation, because they really allow you to think about images or bodies or objects through all of these different dimensions, whether it's these two-dimensional paintings, three-dimensional sculptures, and then film, which for me is like an extension of painting, because it's all of these colors, all of this composition that exists on this 2D surface.
For me, it's more I'm like scattered and I consume a lot of media and then try and sort of translate those materials into whatever the appropriate presentation of them would be at the end. So say if I'm looking at something in Vogue and I see something made of sequins or a tulle, then it's like, can that translate into 3D? Not very effectively usually. So, or a description becomes a smell. And this is where, like, it's more like it's dictated by sort of the input, and then I'm the filter.
Where you're translating feelings and ideas through different feelings, or even a color, like heat as a color, and what does that look like, and how does that
does it
add
need to glow?
a film?
Does it need to not glow? Does it need to sparkle?
Like, I don't have like a painting practice and a sculpture practice and a film. It's all just one sense of production.
So one of the first films I made, Fantasy Flesh 2.0, climate change kind of was a sort of passive character in the background. It was set at the foot of a volcano at nighttime, where this hotel that I dreamed about a lot when I was a kid sort of was situated. And it's pushing sort of the narrative of the film, in that there's like a sense of this sort of colossal devastation is like present, but you're not really sure what's going to happen, and ultimately nothing happens. Like, even when you're thinking about where are you going to live in a city, it's like, where are the floodplains drawn for 10 years from now? Or
I don't think I've ever tackled climate change specifically, but it is always at the back of my mind, so I think it comes through the work. I think video and film has a particular ease in traveling because it is a file. I don't know how it engages a public. For the most part, I just make a work and then put it out in the world and then see what happens.
Yeah, for me it's more just like, I think for where I like to consume work is usually like on the sofa or in bed. So if it's something that can be transmitted through a phone or a screen, that's ideal. Ultimately, I want you to be watching the film in bed, curled up.
For me, I always remember enjoying art class because for me it always felt like a break. I was always good at it. Like, I was always good at drawing. I don't have very strong memories, but I do remember always enjoying it.
I had the opposite experience. I hated art in school because I didn't understand why it was structured. And now I see, like, as a practicing artist, I just realized my own methodologies don't align. I'm very scattered and like to sort of pick and choose what I want at any given time. Every 10 minutes it changes. That said, the discipline that it offered, like, I did learn to draw. Yeah. I learned color theory and I learned loads of things that I didn't realize as an adult not everyone kind of learns. So
I had a very strict teacher for like the first 3 years in secondary school, which didn't help. I didn't understand why an art teacher was strict.
Yeah, I was constantly in trouble for not doing art homework, and I was like, I don't understand why I don't understand why we have to go home and draw. I'm already going home and drawing, but
I think I've always wanted to be an artist because I was always good in school, but I never tried. And being an artist felt like something that I could do where I can set my own schedule. I can do whatever I want. And sometimes I don't like start working until like 4 p.m.
I just love looking at beautiful things and sort of chasing sort of desires that I have, whether that's aesthetics or thoughts or whatever. And being able to fold that all into your sort of your everyday life feels like a massive privilege almost, to be able to just be like, oh, I'm thinking about these beautiful things.
I don't think I would be good at a lot of other things.
I've tried a lot of other things. I am not good.